everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here today. My name's Rebecca Eskreis. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a director, producer, and writer. I've been working in film now and production. I've been working in production for about 20 years almost. Been working in film for about 14 or 15 at this point. I've worked my way up. No one in my family does this for a living. They all think I'm crazy. So, I really love talking to people who are, in the beginning of their journey, or maybe even in their journey, and figuring out where they belong. Also just advising people who are just, figuring out this industry and just generally. I'm also an assistant professor of cinema at the Graduate School of Brooklyn College, which is called the Feirstein School of Cinema. So, I work with graduate film students on a daily basis, and just really love talking about filmmaking and production and this industry generally. And I hope that I'm able to offer you something today that's worthwhile to your career. So I was able to look at some of your resumes today and just kind of get a general sense of where you're at in your careers. That's obviously not a stipulation for being part of the discussion. I'm interested, primarily what I thought I would talk about today is, I will be honest, I review, just looking at the resumes, everyone here really seems to have a great grasp on, how to put a resume together and, how to present yourself cogently and professionally. The one thing that and I'll just jump right in here. The one thing that I often see with resumes is there's a difference between a resume where you're talking about a production job or a film job, and when you're talking about something that you did outside of the industry. And I think that sometimes, and I was guilty of this too when I was starting out, is you feel like you need to fill up a resume with like explaining what you did on a job, like, oh, I was the script supervisor and here are all the things that I did. If you're applying for a job that's in the industry, anyone who's looking at your resume is going to know what those things are, right? They're going to know what a producer does, what a director does, pretty much anything in the industry, they're going to know what it is. And so what I'd rather see you use your resume space for is if there's jobs that aren't in the industry, but you feel might be relevant to what you did. Often a lot of us, especially like as college students or grad students, or even like in that time in between, we have other jobs that we do that aren't necessarily related to working in film and TV production or commercial production or whatever it is. And I think using the space to separate even like general work experience from production experience is a great way to show like, I have all these really great skills, and let me tell you a little bit more about what I'm able to do, versus like anybody who's, done anything. Like, let's say I'm reviewing your resume. If you were a producer, I know what you did. I want to see all your credits laid out. I want to see all the things you've worked on. Maybe tell me where those films went or what you did with them, or, did they play festivals? Did you have any actors in them that maybe I would have heard of or know about? So that's the main takeaway. And I'm happy to answer questions about that as we dig deeper into the conversation. But that's always my number one takeaway, is I think I see a lot of resumes where people say like, oh, I produced this student film, and then write like 10 duties that they did. And I'm like, I know you did that. I know what producing a student film is. I produced a lot of them, and anybody who's looking at your resume knows what that is. What I want to know is, obviously you're all super talented, you're ambitious, you're here on a Friday afternoon or Friday midday, wherever time zone you're coming in from. What I want to hear about is what makes you different. What other jobs have you held in your past that make you unique, and what life experience do you have? What kinds of films are you interested in making? Or even in the film description, rather than telling me your duties specifically, why did you get involved in the film? Maybe include a log line like, okay, this is a short film. This is the title of the short film. I was a producer. A short film about X, Y, and Z. Okay, that's more interesting to me than listing all of the duties that you had on that film, because I know what you did. I want to know why you got involved in the project and why it was meaningful to you, right? And yeah, I mean, and that's sort of, that was my big takeaway from looking at all of the resumes specifically. And again, like, no one is, I have at this point, like, I try to keep my resume to 2 pages. I think that no one is expecting you to show up with like a 2-page resume. What they want to see is, here's what I've done, here's who I am, here's why I'm excited about working in this industry, and here's why me as my unique individual are going to be an asset to whatever job I'm applying to now. So yeah, I thought I'd just jump right in with that. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. I also want to know what's interesting to you. I have a couple of talking points I'm happy to talk about just generally, but really I'm here to help you all and to hear what you want to learn about for me, and how my experience could be beneficial to you as you begin or are in your journey. Yeah, Toby.
Thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
The question that I've been thinking about a lot is, I guess I've been learning about like the people that I want to be like and their journeys. And, I'm learning more that like, oh, so-and-so 5 years working at Gap before they did whatever. And they did this for 15 years before they did whatever. And I guess now that you said you've 2 decades in production, I guess I wanted to talk to you about making it happen sustainably, like making it that far, because it feels like I've been doing production work for going on 2 years. I'm in like a little bit of a transition phase right now. And yeah, I just kind of want to hear your perspective on making it that far. And like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great question. So there's sort of 3 schools of philosophy, and I'll tell you which one is mine. I truly believe that it is a marathon of getting to where you want to be, and each one is its own unique path. Some people say, do whatever you got to do while you're working on your own art. Some people say, get in there and be working constantly so that you meet as many people as possible, right? And some people say, become the person in charge so that one day you can hire yourself. All are valid paths. I think you have to decide what's right for you. The path that was right for me was that I had side jobs. I've worked in retail. I tutored a lot. I've had all kinds of different jobs. I also spent 7 years working as an assistant, both on a desk and on set. And I found that the right path for me was meeting as many people as possible in the early part of my career, so that when I was finally in the place where I said, you know what, I'm going to go take whatever job so that I can finally set aside some time to try to get my own projects off the ground. I had an amazing network of people that I could go back to and that I could say, hey, I've got this script that I wrote. Who do you know that might have access to financing? I would call up an agent that I'd worked with for 3 years while I was on a desk as an assistant. And I said, hey, would you read a script I wrote and maybe consider representing me? But that was my path because I wanted to really be in the middle of the industry, whether it was in New York, LA, or in Austin, where I lived for 2 years. But some people don't like that. And they say, you know what, I'd rather, like you're saying, I'd rather work at the Gap, or I'd rather, be a graphic designer or work in UX design and do my stuff on the side and network and submit my film, my script places or whatever it is. I think the hardest thing that as creatives we have to do is to be honest with who we are. Like, if you're somebody who thrives being alone all day, and then you can go off and like do a bartending job, and then you want to come back, and write, and that's your rhythm, then that's who you are. What I realized about myself is that until I really needed to be 100% invested in myself and getting my projects going and taking that risk, I'm somebody that thrives in my network and in being involved in projects and learning through osmosis and being on set and being around other people. So I think that it's the first step, I would say, is literally write a list of things of like, how do I like to spend my time? How do I want my day to look? What makes me happy? What time do I like to wake up in the morning? Do I like showing up to the same place every day, or do I like every day to be different? Am I cool with having a boss, or do I hate having a boss? These are questions that I think we can ask ourselves in the 21st century, and we can find a way into being artists by starting first with who we are and what makes us happy. So I see a question, of course. I see a question here in the chat. I'm curious how we get experience to Sarah without having experience in film and TV. Great question. So, Sarah, where do you live? Just curious. And if LA, perfect. You live in LA, the best place to get experience. Where if you have never worked on anything ever and you want to get experience, the best film schools in the world are in Los Angeles. You've got USC, you've got UCLA, you've got Chapman, you've got Loyola, you've got AFI. Volunteer yourself to work on a graduate student film as a production assistant for free. They will be so excited to have you. You will meet really talented young people who are on their way into working in the industry, and you'll get experience. And if you're willing to do that even on a weekend, just to like try it out, especially if you already have a job doing something else, that's a great way just to get started, because once you have any kind of PA experience, you can start applying for jobs to work anywhere on set. If you're interested in working like in an office, or a desk job is something of more interest to you, and you have that kind of experience in maybe another industry, then highlight that on your resume. Like I've answered phones, I've done administrative work in a different industry, and I'm looking to transition that into entertainment. Luckily for you, you're in LA, so there's a lot of opportunity. I understand there's also a lot of competition. But I'm telling you to angle yourself towards student filmmakers only because it's a very quick way to get great experience. So what I would do is I would contact the actual schools. And I'm, in addition to my first job in film things that we'll talk about at the end here, I'll share my contact info with you so you can stay in touch with me. And I'm a USC alum. I know people at all the various film schools. I think a great place to look is all the career offices. They post jobs that students are looking for help on, and they also receive resumes. And I'm telling you, when I was a graduate student, I was desperate for PAs to come help me. All right, I'm going to go in order here. So, okay, unless we have a hand up, which I don't see one now. Okay, Taylor Brand, how do we gain mentor shadowing experience if the only jobs people call you in for or offer are PA positions? Great question. Taylor, can you tell us where you're located? Are you also in LA? Atlanta, Georgia, another great place to be. Okay, so I would say, when you say the only jobs people call you in for or offer you are PA positions, my counter to you is, why is that a bad thing? where you start is as a PA or as an assistant, because that's where I started. I was an assistant for a long time. And before that, I was an unpaid intern when it was like even way more illegal than it is now. And everyone I knew wasn't getting paid for doing jobs that they should have gotten paid to do. So what I'm saying is, when I have a friend who I met when I was doing my thesis film, and she was a PA on my set. She was a junior at a local university. She was just hired to be an intern PA. And I learned this from her. She got on set and in a very strategic way, figured out how to make herself indispensable to the production. And this was a 9-day shoot. It wasn't a television show, but she figured out a way to be indispensable. She volunteered to do things nobody else wanted to do. She recognized who the people were on set that had decision-making power. She didn't make herself, she wasn't rude. She didn't get up in my face. She just did her job really well. And she continues to be one of my closest friends 10 years later. And she's now a development executive in LA at a production company. And she worked her way up that way. And so what I would say to you is, if you're getting a PA opportunity, is at the end of the PA job to ask the person that hired you how you might get a mentorship opportunity or might get a shadowing opportunity. Like, hey, this was such an amazing experience. I learned so much on this set. I'd love to come shadow you on something else. Or if it's an indie film, when I direct a film, I get to know every person on the set, and every PA that has ever worked for me, I've stayed in touch with. I've written them letters of recommendation. I've let them or invited them onto other projects that I've done. I think that the best thing you can do is just do your job really well. And at the end of doing your job really well, ask for what you want. Everyone knows why you're there. And so I would say, don't be afraid to speak up for what you want. And I think that it will work in your favor. I hope that was helpful. And yes, thank you, Nifty, for that comment to Taylor. So next, I don't want to pronounce your name incorrectly. Obin, is that correct? I'm currently working on a desk in a more corporate environment, and I'm interested in moving into a showrunner or director assistant role to see more on the set side. How do you recommend finding jobs? Great question. I'm based in New York. Cool. I'm in New York too. Okay. So great question. So tricky, but good question. So if you're working, and I was in this position, so I was working in a company in development, and I really I was assisting a producer like in the production company office. And what I really wanted to be doing was either assisting an on-set producer or really an on-set director, which I eventually found my way into. I don't know exactly what the company you're doing does specifically, or if you're Obane. Okay, cool name, love it. So Obane, what I would say is, I don't know, and maybe you can enlighten me in the chat, is if the company that you're working with on a desk, do they have projects that are in production? And the reason I say that is, like, for example, when I was an assistant to a producer in an office, I was still talking to all of the people that were part of the team that were working on set. So I knew the production supervisor and the line producer and all the on-set PAs and all that, even though I was the person working for the production company producer. And so what I did, you're currently in reality TV looking to move to scripted. Okay, very cool. So actually what I would say is, if you're in reality, that's actually, I know it's a tough transition to go from reality to go into scripted, but not at all impossible. And lots of people do it. And a lot of people who move into scripted start in reality. What I would say is, in addition to just getting your resume out there and networking and if you know, just generally now that people are really out and about and actually networking with each other in person. What I would say generally is if you're interested in getting on set, then use your position on a desk to get to know people who are on the set. So that might be PAs that are on set that you're getting to know. I don't know what kind of relationship you have with your boss, but again, it kind of goes back to the prior question that Taylor had, which is, you know, how do I go from one place to another? And I think that the best resource that anybody can have, and that even goes back to Toby's question, is using the relationships that you have to get to the place that you want to be, because you're never more relevant than to the people that you are working with immediately. And everyone knows that people who are, you know, in the first 5 years of their career are looking to move about to get to where they want to be. So what I would suggest is to just get to know the people that are working on set, because I guarantee you that the people that work on set know people that work in other areas of the industry. And there's a lot of production happening in New York right now. So just kind of getting in there and meeting as many people as you can. And just, I hated when a former boss said this to me, but it's really true. Just like making friends with people, everybody knows that people are there to network and find their way into their next opportunity. So that's my best advice to you in where you are. And again, don't be discouraged because you're in reality right now. You can certainly find your way into scripted. Any advice about seeking so this is for Jack. Any advice about seeking representation as a director, branded music video, doc, etc. So Jack, do you have a website? I'm sure you do. I hope you do if you don't. I would actually recommend that you look up 50 people that you like, who you feel are one step ahead of where you are, figure out who represents them, and send them your website. They are looking for people like you. They are looking for people who are a little below or maybe right at the clients they have. And they're constantly looking to fill their roster. And if you want to work in branded, there is tons of opportunity in branded content, especially if you have a reel that with some good content on it already. So that is my people in that universe, like unlike let's say motion picture narrative or even or TV narrative, where those agents are like, do not send me unsolicited materials, do not send me unsolicited materials. People working in branded music video and like you know, doc is such a broad category. I mean, it's anything from like documentary, like pure long form documentary, to like Vice and news, you know, short form news content. Put a great reel together, have a killer website, and start sending it out to agents and managers. And I think you will get some bites. They're always looking for new people. And also, like I said, I'm going to give everyone my contact info, and I know some people in New York who might be interested in looking at your stuff. So for sure, stay in touch. Ryan Abrams, what is your recommendation for getting a PA position? My goal is to get my foot in the door. I'm currently a PA for a news outlet looking to transition, and I'm based in NYC. Okay, I would say my advice to you is similar to what I was saying to Obane about going from reality into oh, I see you, Ryan. Hi. Going from reality into scripted, which is that I actually started out working in news. I was working for Forbes.com doing online news for them, and then, you know, moved into doing production. I actually would say a combination of that same advice plus the advice I gave our friend about working on student films. Like I said, I'm a professor over at Feirstein at the graduate school in Brooklyn. Also, you've got Columbia, NYU. So when I was working in news production just out of college, I crewed on a Columbia University thesis film. And I learned how to work on a film set and met a bunch of people, and they graduated. And, you know, I ended up moving to LA, but they would have hired me as a PA once they were out working. And if you're a good PA working on grad student films, you're going to keep working. But same thing, just try to get on any set. Does everybody know, that's what's so great. And we'll get into talking about my first job in film, which is it's a fantastic site that has really great job opportunities that are actually posted there. You're going to go on the site, you're going to see I've worked with the founder. I'm going to take off my earbuds. Hold on, because they're about to die. Hold on. Okay. Can you guys all hear me still? Great. So what I was going to say is, that's why I started working with them, was because, there's a lot of scam sites out there that are like, oh yeah, we've got all these great production jobs, but actually they don't, or actually they're aggregating jobs from other sites, or it's like, yeah, we're looking for a PA, but they're not really looking for a PA. They're looking for, I don't even know what they're looking for. I've seen some really weird stuff out there. So the reason I'm saying go through a legit site, like my first job in film, which, Krupa will offer a discount code at the end, so you guys can get on the site for free and see the kind of jobs that are on there. But the reason why I'm also touting, approaching the graduate schools and college level is because it's a great way to meet people who are actually going to start working and doing real things. But it's a great way to get experience if you don't have any, to put something on your resume to say hey, I've worked on a film set. I know what this is. And so when you see that kind of first job posting, you can apply for it, and you actually are yeah, here are all these great things about me. I went to this great school. I learned all these amazing things. I'm super smart and responsible and all the things that all of you are. And also, I know that film and TV is for me because I actually went on a film set and I tried it out and I saw that I really like it and that this is a world I want to be in. And that's going to kind of help you stand up, I think, above other candidates. Okay, let's see. Great. Thanks for your website, Jack. Okay, hope that was helpful. Joseph, I'm a writer and director currently located in Toronto. Cool, my best friend lives in Toronto. I'm happy to produce films here in Canada, but I know eventually I will have to make my way down to LA. Any advice for when someone is ready to cross the border and how to establish yourself in a new environment? I don't know, Joseph. Why are you so anxious to leave Toronto? There's really great opportunities for Canadians in Canada. But when to cross the border, I would actually say use your Canadian citizenship to your advantage, and get experience in Canada. I mean, one of the benefits that Canada has as a country that the US doesn't is that Canada has actual national incentives for production, which the US does not. The incentives for production in the US are dictated by the state government, and every state is different. California, funny enough, while a huge production state, does not have production incentives. What does that mean? It means that while the studios and the production companies and the sort of the orbit of the industry is located in Hollywood, most of production that people are putting money into that is not in studios is happening outside of California. So what I would say is, Joseph, is what are you interested in doing? If you're producing films, then yes, agreed. LA is a great place to build a network. It's a great place to go and build relationships with agents and managers and to meet filmmakers and to sort of build a roster of talent. But I think you've got a really great advantage on your side that you live in Canada and you have Canadian citizenship. And so you have access to a lot of the resources that the Canadian government is going to give you. Now, I will say the other thing that's good to note is that when you do go to LA, and I would go with some experience under your belt, so you can say hey, I've already got this experience of producing these short films, or maybe you've got a feature under your belt. Oh, I see you, Joseph. Hi. You got a feature under your belt, or you've got you've got a body of work that, feels like enough to get out and network with people. What you have that many Americans are dying for is access to producing films in Canada. So I would say spend the time, like get a nice website together, you know, build up a little bit of a body of work, and then, you know, save up whatever you need to save up and get there and meet people and network. And but yeah, I mean, if you're a writer and director, I think that that's also something that you can use, especially as a big piece of your calling card, which is like, here's my work, here's what I do. I can also get this made in Canada. And that's extremely, extremely useful. So I think it's more when I see, so you want to establish yourself as a screenwriter. So I think that, yeah, you know, look, there's no right or wrong time to move to LA. I think it's more of, for me, when I did live in LA, it was more of a financial decision of like, when am I ready to move? And, you know, how am I going to make a living while I'm there? Do I have stuff that I'm ready to sell? Am I already reaching out to, okay, so if the sensibility is more of LA than are being produced in Canada, then, you know, that's a personal choice. I don't think anyone can tell you the right time to go. I think it's more of a feeling that that's where you want to be, and come up with a plan, you know, come up with a plan of, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to get out there and meet people? And know always that you have that fallback, that, you know, when you want to start directing, you have a great asset in your back pocket. And also the Toronto Film Festival, which is always it's an amazing platform for filmmakers, and they do have films that are for Canadian filmmakers specifically. You're very welcome. Let's see. Okay, Lucretia. Did I say that right? I hope I did. Leticia. Oh, Leticia. Okay, so I see Leticia, and then I'll go back to Lucretia, who was before that. But Leticia, I got you first. Okay. How would you leverage your past experience in another sector to assistant roles? Good question. So what specifically are you interested in?
Sorry, I'm trying to turn on the camera. I've worked as a program manager, project manager in the nonprofit industry for 8 years. And I'm like looking at development and like writer assistant, you know, more creative assistant roles.
Mm-hmm. So what I would say is highlight the aspects of those jobs that specifically relates to how those skills would be applicable in a either writer's assistant, writer's PA, or production environment specifically. I also would target specifically starting out. I mean, look, I know that we just send our resumes everywhere hoping that you get a hit and you get a job. Where are you based out of?
I'm in LA.
Oh, nice. So what I would say is I would also target companies, even if they're not hiring necessarily at the moment, is to just send your resume to places that you think you'd want to work or that are exciting to you, because you already have job experience, right? You've already worked your way up into a manager role. And so a way that you could kind of leverage that is to say, I already have a career somewhere else, but this is what I really want to do. And I think that you're in a position where, of course, you can be applying for lots of jobs, right? And looking at great jobs that are available. And I highly encourage you to apply to those jobs anyway. Just get your resume out there, top of your resume, call it out. I've been working in nonprofit for X number of years. These are the things I've accomplished. But what I really want to do is use the skills I have and leverage them into a job in the industry. And like I was saying before, differentiating between jobs that everyone in the industry knows what they are versus jobs that we don't know what they are, but why they're applicable to what you want to be doing. And I think a combination of that with people that are already hiring from good job sites, networking, and then just targeting companies. Like, you never know. people are looking for good people who are excited about the type of work that they're doing. You know, when I was working as a development executive and I was hiring people, every once in a while we would just get a random resume for an intern or a PA or an assistant. And if the person seemed really interesting, I would always meet them, because you sometimes, like, I'd get a resume sometimes and I'd be like, this person sounds interesting, but I don't know why they want to work here. We make Nicholas Sparks novels, you know, like, into movies. This person probably doesn't really want to work here. But when I would get a resume that was like, The Notebook is my favorite movie. I mean, this is years ago. The Notebook is not my favorite movie, but I was working for a company where, you know, we did lots of movies like that. And people were, when someone would send a resume in who was like so passionate about what we were doing, I would always meet them, because, you know, and I think more than ever, the industry is really opening up to like the idea of people. We want people that are interested in actually, like, it's become much more niche. There's a lot more opportunities for different kinds of storytelling. And I think that showing that you've done your research about where you want to be is going to be really meaningful to the places that you're applying. Does that help a bit?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let me just go ahead. So Lucretia, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm based in LA and want to work on the studio network side and transition into scripted development current series. I'm still pretty early in my career journey, but feel like I'm getting pigeonholed in my current area of casting. Any advice for those of us looking to pivot from one area of the industry to the other? That's a great question. Casting's tough. It's a tough part of the business to be in. I applaud you for being in casting. It's very hard. How do you transition? Well, I'm going to kind of give you the same puzzle piece that I gave that I both gave to Leticia, and also I said to, you know, I kind of feel like I've been saying this in different ways, which is it's a combination of what do you already know by working in casting, where do you want to go, and who do you know, and who are you making friends with, right? So when you work in a casting office, yeah, sure, of course you're working with the casting directors but I guarantee you're emailing with lots and lots of people all the time about all kinds of projects, about all kinds of things. And it's sometimes hard when you're so busy working all the time to also think about how to position yourself to think about a different kind of job, right? When you're in where you're at the current moment. So I think what's great is, like you're saying, you're still pretty early in your career journey, and casting is a great place to start because everyone knows how like fast-paced and tough casting is. So you're going to be a good candidate to get into other areas of the industry, because the one thing that everybody wants is someone who's super organized, super on top of their stuff, and is really quick and hardworking, and people in casting are all of those things. So what I would do is I would obviously have your casting resume for when you need to just get that next job. And I would also start to think about how to use your casting resume to talk about where you want to move next, and put that resume together and have your statement at the top of, this is where I want to go next, and this is why. Here's what the work I've done in casting. Like I said, everyone who knows in the industry knows what casting does, right? But what I would talk about perhaps is in a cover letter or wherever else is how your work in casting specifically is relevant to where you want to go next. And I would also, even though it's scary and I hate doing it, still hate doing it, is like reaching out to people who maybe are on the other side of the email that I'm writing and saying, hey, you know, would you even talk on the phone with me for 10 minutes about what you're doing? Or, you know, hey, like, you know, I'm thinking about working in, you know, I'm trying to find my way into working in development. You know, do you maybe want to talk to me about your job, or do you know if anyone's hiring? That's another thing to do. Ask people, because a lot of the time when you're communicating with people, they're seeing different job boards, different job lists, like internally. And so I think that, even again, like getting back to really great job boards, like, we're talking about my first job in film, we're talking about other places to gain access to good job posts. I think the beginning of that is just like you building your own network so that even when you send a resume in, there might be a situation where someplace that you're applying, the person receiving your resume is somebody who you already know. So I hear you about being afraid about getting pigeonholed, but I think casting is actually a great place to start. And generally pivoting, it's steps, nobody makes a quick 90-degree turn. It's sort of like you kind of make small turns along the way as you get to where you want to go. But just being brave and continuing to reach out to people. Robin. Hi, Robin. I'm trying to be an editor and build a reel for myself. Do you have any advice on how to financially support yourself as a freelance editor? I was working at an editing house for a bit, but the culture was pretty toxic. Yeah, no kidding. I've been assistant editing a few student short films. What would you recommend as a next step? I have a website and I'm from Toronto as well. Excellent. So, Robin, have you considered post supervision or finding your way into working in post supervision? Because it is a highly demanding job. It is not creative. I will tell you that, as far as like, it's not editing, but assistant editing isn't really that creative either. Okay. And at least when you're a post supervisor, you are like overseeing projects, and post supers are always in high demand. And that might be a way where you can continue to work in that world. If you're pretty sure that you don't want to be doing anything except for editing, and you're like, I will do anything else except working, as a post super or an assistant editor or whatever, working at an edit house, then what I would do is kind of, again, going back to the very first piece of advice I said, which is keep editing and go do anything else, right? Do what makes you happy. Do you see another way to make income while you can continue editing and building up continuing to build a website, continuing to work on great projects, continuing to meet great filmmakers? Editing is different perhaps than directing and writing, because it's like you get hired by someone else. They already have the project and then they hire you. You don't have to generate the project from the very beginning. So I think it's a little different than when people come to me and they say, well, I'm a director. What should I be doing? And I think it's different than being an editor or a production designer or a sound designer or anything else where someone's hiring you onto a project that's already funded and already happening. So I would say if you have a website and you're getting some good projects and you build relationships with the student short films you're working on, try to find your way into, proper edit positions, and, continue to build your brand. Because if you worked in an edit house and found it toxic, I think that maybe you're someone that would benefit more from just continuing to constantly work creatively on your own things and, find your income elsewhere so that you keep your energy for the projects that excite you and building those relationships. As far as editing on US projects, networking, getting out there, getting your name out there, having a great website, joining, edit groups, however that is. And again, going on job boards and seeing who's looking to hire an editor. Because remote editing is a big thing now. A lot of people work with remote editors. Diana. I just graduated from CW in Washington with a BA in film production. I've been personally working in the film industry in Washington for 5 years. Congrats. I'm extremely passionate and I'm so proud to be working in film. I produced a now award-winning short film on an all-female crew during college, and we'd like to find a producer to finance our film. What would you recommend we do to find a great producer? I hope this is okay to ask. Of course, we can't make movies without money, right? How do we find the money? So one thing I would do is, Diana, I don't know if you are aware or know about fiscal sponsorship, which is basically where you can get a nonprofit to kind of join your project. And that way, when people make donations to your film through any kind of crowdfunding campaign or crowdfunding site, it's funneled through a nonprofit. The nonprofit takes a percentage. It's usually like somewhere between 5 and 7% of whatever donation is given to the film. You get the rest of the money. The nonprofit benefits from part of the donation, and whoever gave money to your movie gets a tax write-off. So basically, it's a three-way win for everybody. There's lots of great companies. I'm just going to put this in the chat of what I'm talking about. It's called fiscal sponsorship. Not only documentaries are like some people think that they're only for documentaries or social interest films. So short films can apply for this. I've worked with fiscal sponsors. Feature films can work with fiscal sponsors. So I would look into fiscal sponsorship in your home state and see maybe, it's possible that even the Seattle Film Festival, I imagine when you say Washington, you're in Washington State. Either way, there's fiscal sponsors all over the country, and they're eager to work with, Washington State. Excellent. I'd also look into what opportunities that SIFF has, the Seattle International Film Festival, huge film festival, tons of great opportunities for filmmakers. I believe CineQuest is also in Washington, or maybe it's it's in Northern California. But look into fiscal sponsorship, look into what the Seattle Film Festival offers, contact the local film commission. There's always, especially if you have an award-winning short film and you're looking to get a producer on board or financing, great place to start. Another place to look, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, you probably are, but if you're not, Seed and Spark is a great resource also for fundraising. And yes, we should talk about money, because money's the thing that makes movies happen, and TV and everything else. I took a job. Oh, great comment by Kimberly. This is especially with pivoting to another department. I took a job as a COVID testing coordinator and took it out of necessity and ended up getting stuck there. Now I'm trying to pivot out to what I got a degree in writing and attempting to get my start in post. Sure, totally hear you. You know what's great about COVID testing, though? I mean, it's not great. It's awful. And we all wish that COVID would just go away forever. But I think what's interesting about working as a COVID testing coordinator, and look, writing is a very difficult path, because unless you live in a place like LA where there's a direct pipeline into, like, I'm going to work as a PA on a television show, and I'm going to work my way into being a script coordinator or a writer's PA, or, a PA in the writer's room. And I'm going to keep writing and keep writing. You're very welcome, Devin. Thank you. How am I going to, pivot somewhere else? You're a COVID, and I would say this as far as in the spirit of being brave and putting yourself out there. You get a call sheet as the COVID testing coordinator, right? You see all the people that are working on the set that you're working on. Anybody who works on any set gets the whole call sheet, right? You're on a set with lots of people. There are people that you can reach out to. Now, if I'm on a movie with 150 people, am I going to necessarily reach out to the writer and be like, hey, I was the COVID testing PA? I might not, but something, I also might do it. If I have something that's like, hi, I worked on this film for 2 months and I loved the movie, and here's an introduction to me. I found your contact info online, and you can find people's contact info. Would you ever make time to talk to me about how you got into writing? One thing that I think is very specific, and this was one of the things I wanted to mention before we run out of time, about reaching out or, blind reach outs to people that maybe you'd want to meet is people don't want to be reached out to with like, I want a job, because they can't really be helpful, in that specific way always. But people are always willing to offer information, right? And so if you reach out to somebody and you write them a nice email and you say, I'm not looking for a job, I'm not looking to get hired. And you don't say, I wouldn't say that explicitly, but you say, you're pointed in your ask. You say, I am looking to talk to you for a half an hour about how you got your first job in a writer's room. Do your research on the person you're reaching out to, and make your ask specifically. And you'd be surprised that if you ask politely and you don't, and you write an eloquent email and all you ask for is advice on a specific thing, people will be willing to talk to you, and they'll probably give you more than you even asked for. So I think that also just being brave and asking for if you have a way into knowing somebody, being brave and asking. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They don't write back to your email. Believe me, you know how many emails I've written that no one wrote back to? You'll still be fine. So I have time for one more question. And then I think we need to wrap up, and I want to spend a little time at the end here. I know Krupa was going to speak about my first job in film and about some other things. So I'll make this very quick. From Valentina. Ryan, I see your last email. Reach out to me directly. Once I get, Krupa will circulate my contact info. Valentina, I'm a director and writer based in Toronto. Do you have any recommendations on getting production jobs that aren't unpaid? I totally hear you. And my advice is just keep going. You will find a job that is paid. And I know that no one wants to work in unpaid jobs. I worked unpaid jobs. I wouldn't take a long-term job that's unpaid. The reason why I'm suggesting, if you're going to do an unpaid internship type of thing, I would do it on something short, so that it's like on a weekend or a week or something like that, because you don't want to take away from like a real job that is your actual job. And I think that once you have enough things under your belt, you should start applying for real jobs that are paid and turn things down that aren't paid. And it might take a little while, but you will get there. You will get to the jobs that are paid. And we all have, I had a conversation with an attorney friend recently whose first job was unpaid, and she did it for 6 months. And she said, and I've put in my time, giving my time away for free. And then I said no. So decide when you're done doing unpaid work and only say yes to things that are paid. And it will happen. I think it's more of a having faith in the fact that it will, because it will. You have to just keep applying for things and hoping that it will get there, and it will get there. So Krupa, do you want to kind of jump in here or wrap us out?
Yeah, well, one, thank you for doing this with us, Rebecca. This was great. I hope everyone felt good about all the questions you've asked. I just want to wrap us up with a couple of key things you all should know. One, as attendees, you will get access to the My First Job in Films board. We'll get you set up with the discount codes and all of that. They'll be emailed to you most likely Monday afternoon, PT time. For those of you who are interested in reaching out directly or curious about other resources that weren't mentioned in the session, you're welcome to email Nifty directly or shoot us a DM on our socials. We're super active on Instagram, TikTok, you name it. But I'm going to drop into the chat my personal Nifty email. If anyone has direct questions in the meantime, between now and Monday, feel free to send them in. I'm going to hit stop on the record though real quick.